This year's most nominated comedy series at the Emmy Awards breaks the record set by Ted Lasso a few years ago for most nominations in a debut season. But it also ties the record with 23 nominations, which The Bear had last year, for most nominations in any season by a comedy series. But is this awards love warranted? Let's talk about Apple TV Plus's The Studio. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to my TV review for the Apple TV Plus series, The Studio. This is streaming its first 10 episodes now. That completes season 1, and season 2 already in the works. So obviously, Apple TV Plus not only getting the awards love, but they've seen a good return on their investment with this show so far. And the 23 nominations, I do think, should be taken with a little bit of a grain of salt, maybe a little bit of an asterisk, sort of like the Bears 23 nominations last season, because it's not a comedy show. They just put it in there because it's a half hour. But I think we all know the Bear is a drama. But for this one, it's because 5 of these 23 nominations are for Best Guest Actor in a comedy. There's only 6 people nominated for that this season, and the 6th one is John Barenthal from The Bear, last year's winner. But the other 5 are people from the studio, big names that are, poking fun at themselves, poking fun at their sort of image in Hollywood and what have you. That includes Martin Scorsese and Ron Howard. Bryan Cranston is nominated as well. He does not play himself, though. He plays the head of the studio. But look, we'll talk about this show here in just a second. First, though, let me welcome you back to the channel. If you are a Dan Reviews It subscriber, thank you so much for that. Love it when you guys return to check out my stuff. If you're not, though, please consider subscribing and click that notification bell, too, so you get the alerts for all my new videos coming out. And, of course, liking this video, commenting below. Not only does that help the channel out, but I love interacting with you guys in the comments. So let me know what you thought of The Studio. So I binged this all over the course of about 3 days. These are fun episodes. And I will say, just off the bat, I do think the awards love is warranted. There are 7 major nominations for this show, including Best Comedy Series of the Year, and also a bunch of acting nominations, not just from the guests. And there's a guest actress nomination, too, for Zoe Kravitz, but it includes some of the great, lead acting for Seth Rogen, support acting for Ike Barinholtz, supporting actress for Catherine O'Hara and Catherine Hahn, and outstanding directing and writing for a comedy series. So a lot of big nominations, and I gotta say, I think it's justified, and I think it's going to win. The Emmys do tend to love a first season show, and then it gives it just all the awards. It happened with 30 Rock, it happened with Modern Family, it happened more recently with Ted Lasso and The Bear. So I think this is probably the year of The Studio. But let me tell you a little bit about what the show is all about. So Seth Rogen plays this guy, Matt Remick, who is the newly appointed head of this floundering company called Continental Studios. He loves the movies. He loves, being a part of this industry, but he gets in a little bit over his head because he wants to make a bunch of, prestige films that maybe don't make a ton of money, but get awards accolades. But the head of the studio, played, like I said, by Bryan Cranston in a recurring role, wants him to make this Kool-Aid movie, and he keeps talking about all of this great, IP that the studio has and can get, and all of this. And so he's, Matt is trying to balance sort of his love of the industry and the cinema with churning out profits for Continental. So you've got Catherine O'Hara as Patty, who is the former studio head and Matt's mentor, but she returns to work on one film in particular, not as the studio head anymore, obviously, but that means she's still kind of around, and Matt can kind of pick her brain on some things. And then you've got Ike Barinholtz playing Sal Saperstein, for my money, the best part of this show. He's the vice president of production at Continental and a big friend of Matt's. And in fact, in the first scene of the first episode, he thinks he might become the head of the studio. You also have Chase Suey Wonders as Matt's former assistant, who gets promoted when he gets promoted, and then some recurring characters as well, played by Nicholas Stoller, David Krumholtz, and Dave Franco and Zoe Kravitz as themselves. Franco, I think, is another one that got an Emmy nomination for this. So, look, I will start by saying that the biggest negative I guess I have, and maybe one of the only ones, is that I do think this is a little too inside baseball. There are certainly moments of this where even I was like, okay, that's a little too inside for me, and I feel like I know, the movies pretty well in the studios, and I read about how they work and all of that. And even some of it I was like, all right, is this, a little too over my head? So I think the casual fan of movies or whatever may not get as much out of this as, like a cinephile or whatever. But, I was sort of thinking, well, okay, I've never worked in an office building with a cubicle, right? But I still enjoy The Office, and I get that sort of camaraderie with the players and everything, because look, I've had a job. So I think as long as you've like seen movies and sort of understand a little bit about maybe the inner workings and maybe not even specifically the studio system, but the fact that we're churning out all of these sequels and IP all the time, as opposed to more independent features. I think even a casual fan knows that, superheroes rule the box office and all of that. So I think that may not be as pressing of an issue as I thought. But look, as somebody who really, has fallen in love with the movies and television for these many years, this really, really spoke to me in a way that few shows do. And look, I think if you don't like Seth Rogen's, sort of humor, maybe this won't work for you in that regard either. But look, the guy has proven that he can go beyond this stoner comedy of, Pineapple Express and Knocked Up and these earlier movies. I mean, the guy has proven himself beyond for me. He's done some great dramatic work. He's done some great comedy work that doesn't involve, either being stoned or, being sort of a slacker or whatever. The man, I think, has really proven himself, and this is just an extension of that. He co-created this show with his writing partner, Evan Goldberg, and a few other people, but he and Evan Goldberg have directed every single episode of this, and that gives this show, a linear feel. I always say this, that when these seasons or miniseries are broken up, like, okay, this person directed 2 episodes, this other person directed the next 2, and then somebody else the next 2, it can feel a little disjointed sometimes. This is clearly a Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg vision that has been seen through. First of all, it's friggin' hilarious. Second of all, the characters all have these, major flaws, but you kind of fall for them, and you sort of feel for them in certain aspects as well. And yes, there is some drug use at play, but not weed. Some of the people go on a nice trip in one of the later episodes, and it is hilarious. I admit I haven't seen all of the nominees in full for Best Comedy Series, but for my money, this is certainly my favorite comedy of the year. Before I even give my grade, I'm not done heaping the accolades on it. I love the guest stars that come in here. Ron Howard specifically has a great arc, but playing themselves in a skewed version. Yes, okay, we've done it in Curb Your Enthusiasm and some other shows episodes with Matt LeBlanc, for example. But there is something about this because it isn't the lead actor that is coming in. Seth Rogen's not playing himself. So they are all amidst the chaos of these very real people portraying themselves like Scorsese and Zoe Kravitz and all the other people I've listed. And each one brings something else to the table. And yes, there is an overarching, story here, but a lot of these episodes are one-offs as well, because yes, the Kool-Aid movie is sort of the overarching thread, but there's a few other movies that are being dealt with at the same time. You know, Ron Howard's got his own movie, and Dave Franco is in that, and then Zoe Kravitz is over here doing her thing, and so she's got people. And it's, you could kind of dip in and out, because obviously a studio doesn't just have one movie going on at a time. You've got to be everywhere. And so Matt is sort of facing these challenges in a very funny way. Ike Barinholtz, like I said, is, I think, the MVP of this show. um, Maybe specifically because of one episode where he gets mentioned at an award show, and it just is hilarious how he deals with that. And I've always liked Ike Barinholtz, very, very funny dude. And they do the one shot thing as well. Adolescence, that show on Netflix, it's up for a bunch of Emmys as well. Those were full episodes that were one shots. That's incredibly hard to do. This is not quite that, but this is full of like 8-minute scenes that are all one take, one shot type scenes. And I respect it for that as well. And this has a love of movie making while still skewering uh, how it's done and how the studio system is. I just think it is a brilliant piece of television. I am very much looking forward to season two. I don't really give A pluses for TV shows on this channel. It's very, very rare, because that would mean that on average, every episode or most of the episodes are A pluses. I'm not quite sure I'm there, but this is easily one of the best shows of the year. I hope it cleans up at the Emmys. I leave the studio with a very enthusiastic A. And you can check out the first 10 episodes of this on Apple TV Plus. We will see season two hopefully next year. All right. Thank you for watching Dan Reviews It. I'll see you next time.